And what I briefly want to do is to just update you a little bit on what we've been up to in the last year or so. It will be a very short presentation. Last year, that's where we've been visiting all sorts of different locations and instruments and meeting all of the wonderful people who work with brewers. So for those who don't know, there is a website. Unfortunately, we don't have time to update a lot of stuff, but what is updated very regularly is a copy of the Brewer operating software, and we do encourage you to at least try a newer version than you probably have, because there are improvements, fixes for many problems in the previous version, and of course there are new problems that we introduce and we fix them later. And another thing that is updated regularly is there is like a table that we keep with all of the collaborations that we perform everywhere. So if you are interested in the history of a collaboration of a particular instrument, you can look it up on that website and see how frequently and when and where it was collaborated, because sometimes people wonder why data are not in the highest quality. It could be because the instrument was moved or something like that. So we're trying to kind of improve things as much as we can. And so in the hardware, there is something that we produce a microprocessor board that runs at 9600 baud instead of 1200, so it's a much faster, and it also allows you to choose rather which communication port you want to use. Either it is an RS-232 or RS-422, and 422 of course allows you to much larger lengths and much more stable communication cable. We do have a configurable universal I/O board, so that if you have one, you can configure it to control any of the motors that you need, and that gives you a spare board that is universal. A recent addition to this is the humidity sensor small board that it's very easy to install. You can do it yourself, or we can do it during the calibration visit. And we believe that the biggest advantage of having a humidity sensor in a multiple board brewer that doesn't have it is to eliminate unnecessary opening of the brewer to replace the desiccant, because it's a good intention to replace it, but what you do is you introduce new humidity every time you open it. So by knowing what the humidity is inside, you don't have to open it maybe as frequently. And also you can know a little bit about how well your instrument is sealed, because if that humidity follows the humidity outside of the instrument, that's a good indication of leaks of some sort. On the software side, there was a suggestion that a cubic feet in the dispersion doesn't necessarily help a lot. I still believe it does, and so the most recent version of the software actually allows you to choose whether or not you want to use a cubic feet or a quadratic feet for your UV scans. As I mentioned during the course part of the week, the very latest version is also fully compatible with DOSBox, and probably more and more of you will soon be moving to 64, forced to be moving to a 64-bit operating system where you cannot directly run GW Basic, so DOSBox seems to be one of the best solutions around, and it also works on Linux very well. Also on the software side, we're trying to improve mostly the collection, presentation, formatting of the data about the instrument. So some of these are listed here. This is not by far not the full list but we work on trying to understand the brewers better and preserve the information about the brewer better as it is running, so that we can go back and understand why a particular portion of your record is maybe not as clean as you would like it to be. We also have some new diagnostic tests, so that again, if something is not quite right or you don't understand, you can run a diagnostic that will potentially discover what is wrong with the instrument, because it moves just about every motor that is possible to move in the brewer, and tries to understand whether or not it's moving right, the way you expect it to move. We also use often this, it's one routine that we use, especially during the calibration. It minimizes the time the instrument spends on the tests, because it tries to understand whether or not the test is needed, and then you kind of collect a lot of useful direct sound measurements without spending time on HG, for example. But on the other hand, do HG as soon as it is necessary. And that's about it. So thank you. Any questions, comments? Yes?
Is there any plan to develop a DS routine that doesn't measure when there is no light? No,
well, after visiting Vene, I realized that that's what should be done, because he's been doing it for forever, and in the latest in the latest routine, that's exactly what's happening. And there is an option, actually. You can say that that's what I would like, or you can say no, measure anyway. And so what it does is just measures the first when you actually decide, when the software decides which filter to use, it also decides whether or not to continue with the measurement. Because if the attenuation is 0, so there is no neutral density filter in the pass, and the counts are very, very low, there is no point of doing a measurement. So it just skips. It puts a comment in the B file that the intensity is too low to measure. It actually puts the same comment in red font on the screen. The intensity is too low for DS, and skips it. It automatically increases the number of zenith sky measurements if they are in the schedule. So you kind of have an automatic balance of having more of these measurements. But also, what I find is it allows people sometimes detect problems, because if you look out of your window and you see bright sun and then clear sky, but your instrument says the intensity is too low, you might consider checking the sighting, or checking your instrument. So it kind of was a very very useful introduction, I think. Yes.
It's also cloud statistics.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely, yes. But when I put a count rate so low that it's just there is no point of making any measurements at all.
Right, but it still should be logged as an attempted measurement.
Correct. It does. Yeah. Absolutely. Oh yeah.
So
There is a.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Is the current software you talk about, is it now available on the iOS website?
Except for one of the changes. Oh yeah. Except for the fully compatibility with DOSBox. That has been implemented in version 3.79. 3.80 is the version that I'm about to release. Includes that and probably only that difference.
Just the DOSBox?
Correct.
When do you expect that to be available?
As soon as they recover from this trip at home.
We've been bound.
Monday. Yeah. Well, Tom was very optimistic about my recovery rate.
Well, I'm lecturing at noon.
We have to stop using XP and move on to.
Yeah, we realized that, and one of the driving forces was actually Environment Canada, because they kind of faced the same problem, and they contacted me and said, what are the options, and between Martin and myself we were able to provide some information, but then very quickly realized that there are some things that you have to change, and if you go to Martin's website, they are listed what changes need to be done to the software in order to accommodate. I was able to go around them so that you don't have to change anything anymore, and everything works. And there is no, Martin actually wrote a special software which is external to the Brewer software that does certain things that DOS box cannot do compared to DOS shell. But I was able to do it in GW Basic, and so I avoided using an external program.